see. So Carnot's theorem. So Carnot's theorem is telling us that if I have two engines operating between the same temperature limits, say I have the source temperature at 800 and the sink temperature is at 300. Okay, one engine is reversible and the other engine is irreversible. Okay, I have the same temperature source and the same temperature sink for both the engines. The only difference is one engine is reversible and the other engine is irreversible. So if you compare both of them, your reversible engine will have the higher efficiency, which means your reversible engine will deliver more amount of work than the irreversible engine. Okay, so that is what Carnot's theorem is telling us. So if you have all heat engines operating between a given constant temperature source and a given constant temperature sink, none has a higher efficiency than a reversible engine. Okay, and let's look at this these three pictures, and I have taken this from PK Nath. So I have taken the picture so that we don't waste our time in drawing that. Okay, so look at this picture, which is 6.25. Okay, so here two engines are shown operating between the source temperature T1 and the sink temperature T2. Okay, and here in the picture, both in the figure, both EA and EB, both the engines are shown as reversible. Okay, and now we have to prove Carnot's theorem. So if we have to prove Carnot's theorem, then we have to assume one engine is reversed and the other one engine is reversible and the other engine is irreversible. Okay, so what we will do is, let us assume this engine EA. Let us assume engine EA as irreversible. Okay, let us assume engine EA as irreversible and let us assume engine EB as reversible. And remember, both these engines are going to have the same temperature source and the same temperature sink. There is no change in or no difference in the source temperature and the sink temperature. Okay, so we have assumed EA as irreversible, EB as reversible. According to Carnot's theorem, EB is supposed to have more efficiency than EA. According to Carnot's theorem, the efficiency of EB, engine EB, should be greater than efficiency of engine EA if EB is reversible and EA is irreversible. That is what Carnot's theorem is telling us. But let's start by assuming that I don't believe in Carnot's theorem. So I am going to say efficiency of engine A is going to be greater than efficiency of engine B. That is how I am going to assume this. Okay, I don't believe in Carnot's theorem, so I am saying engine A, the irreversible engine, is having more efficiency than the reversible engine B. We know the definition for efficiency. Efficiency is work done divided by heat supply. So let's say work done for engine A divided by heat supplied for engine A. So W by heat supplied. So that is for engine A. So this term should be greater than work done by engine B divided by Q1B. Okay, so I have just written the formula for efficiency or definition of efficiency. So we will see something like this. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, so this is what I have. So we have written the formula for efficiency. Now what we can do is, if we assume, because the source is going to be the same for both the engines, the heat supplied will also be the same because they have the same source. They are supposed to have the same heat supply. So your Q1A will be equal to Q1B. because you have the same source. You are supplying the same source, so the heat supplied should be the same. So Q1A will be equal to Q1B because I have the same source. So if Q1A is equal to Q1B, then work done or the work delivered by A is greater than the work delivered by B. Okay. I don't believe in Carnot's theorem, so I get the work done by A is greater than work done by B. Engine A is delivering more work than engine B. Okay, up to this clear? Now let's move on to the next picture. Now what I do is, this engine B is reversible. So now I am going to reverse the engine. So far, it acted as a heat engine. Now I am going to reverse this engine, which means now this heat engine will become a refrigerator. So they have inverted this EB like this. The mirror image of EB they have written like this. So this EB is nothing but your refrigerator. So it removes Q2B amount of heat from the sink and rejects Q1 amount of heat to the source by taking WB amount of work input. Okay. Now I have reversed this engine EB into a refrigerator. Okay. And my previous conclusion tells me that WA is greater than WB. Okay. Because this WA is greater than WB, I think that I can utilize this WA to run this refrigerator, which is engine EB, the reversed engine EB. Okay, so WA is utilized, the work WA is utilized for running the refrigerator, which is nothing but reversed EB. Okay, so if I utilize WA for running this engine EB, okay, so WA is utilized for running this reversed engine EB. So if you look at the next picture, WA minus WB will be the net work done. However, this WA is utilized for running the refrigerator. Okay. Already we have seen this source temperature T1 is common for both EA and reversed EB. Okay. So we said Q1A is equal to Q1B because both of them have the same temperature source. Q1A is equal to Q1B. We have already seen this. Okay. So now because Q1A is equal to Q1B, Q1B amount of heat is rejected to the source by this reversed engine. So now what I'm going to do is I don't require a temperature source because Q1B is equal to Q1A. Okay. So now I have an engine which runs a refrigerator. Okay. This is supposed to be EB. EB should be written like this, reversed EB. So now I have a heat engine which is running a refrigerator, okay, by operating with a single reservoir. Okay. So this violate Kelvin Planck's statement. Kelvin Planck's statement tells us that you require two reservoirs to run a heat engine or a refrigerator or a heat pump. So now because that is violated, so our initial assumption is wrong. What was our initial assumption? The initial assumption is eta A is greater than eta B. So that assumption is wrong. Okay. So we ended up getting WA greater than WB. So that is also wrong. Because we proceeded with this, it is violating the Kelvin Planck statement. So because I didn't accept the Carnot's theorem, it ends up violating the Kelvin Planck statement. So now we are able to prove that the reversible engine is going to have more efficiency than the irreversible engine. Okay, it is like giving a proof from the negative point of view. Hope it is clear to you. So Carnot's theorem, to be very simple, if you have two engines operating between the same temperature limits, the reversible engine will have more efficiency than the irreversible engine. That is what Carnot's theorem is telling us. Okay. And the corollary of the Carnot's theorem is the efficiency of all reversible heat engines operating between the same temperature levels is the same. Okay. Uh, so if you have the same temperature source 800 Kelvin and the sink 300 Kelvin, and you have multiple heat engines and all of them are reversible heat engines, every reversible heat engine operating between the same temperature limit is going to give you the same efficiency. Okay, so that is the corollary of Carnot's theorem, another way of saying Carnot's theorem. Okay, so these are some 2-mark questions that may turn up in your question paper. Okay, the other important thing is absolute thermodynamic temperature scale. Okay, so let's see what this is. Absolute thermodynamic temperature scale. So let me assume that there is a heat reservoir T1 and heat reservoir, the initial picture is not there. So let me draw the initial picture. So I have a temperature source T1 and you are familiar with this. So you have a heat engine for which Q1 amount of heat is supplied and it delivers W amount of work and rejects Q2 amount of heat to the sink, which is maintained at P2. Okay, this is a normal heat engine. Okay, and the efficiency work done divided by heat supplied. So Q1 minus Q2 divided by Q1, which can be written as 1 minus Q2 by Q1. So this is the formula for efficiency. And let's assume that it is a reversible heat engine. So this is a reversible heat engine. Let's assume that it is a reversible heat engine. So efficiency of a reversible heat engine. So this is a very generic definition, 1 minus Q2 by Q1. If it is a reversible heat engine, then the Carnot efficiency would be 1 minus T2 by T1. It is dependent only on the source and sink temperature. Okay, so for a reversible engine is nothing but Carnot engine. Why do we say Carnot engine is a reversible engine? All the 4 processes in the Carnot cycle are reversible processes. Reversible isothermal expansion, reversible adiabatic expansion, reversible isothermal compression, reversible adiabatic compression. All these are reversible processes. So a Carnot engine is a reversible engine. So for a reversible engine, the efficiency is a function of temperature only. It depends only on temperature T1 and temperature T2. Okay, so we can write this as efficiency of a reversible engine is a function of T1 and T2. Okay, and for a reversible engine, it is also valid that I can write this as 1 minus Q2 by Q1 also. So for a reversible engine, 1 minus Q2 by Q1 will be equal to 1 minus T2 by T1. Okay, if it is an irreversible engine, 1 minus Q2 by Q1 will be lesser than 1 minus T2 by T1. So because it is a reversible engine, I can replace this efficiency term with 1 minus Q2 by Q1, and it is also a function of temperature, source temperature and sink temperature. Okay, I have used small t, so in the diagram also let it be small t. Okay, so 1 minus Q2 by Q1 is a function of T1 and T2. I have a 1 here and there is a minus sign preceding it. Okay, and it is convenient for me to write it as Q1 by Q2. So I am removing this 1, I am removing this minus, and I'm inverting this, which means equivalent thing should be done here, right? So you should, if this 1 is removed here, that 1 should be brought here, which will become minus 1. So if I am removing this minus, then this will become 1 minus f of T1 by T2. And if I invert it, Q1 by Q2 will be 1 by 1 minus f of T1 by T2. T1 comma T2. So that is again another function which depends on T1 and T2. So I am writing it as a new function. This is capital F. So this is a new function. This is the previous one, small f. So because I'm inverting it and I'm cancelling this 1 and minus, so I'm writing this as capital F of T1 and T2. Okay. So Q1 by Q2 is a function of T1 and T2. Okay. Let me assume that now let's look at this picture. I have a reservoir T1 and there is another reservoir T3 and there is an intermediate reservoir T2. So here I have the engine 1 operating between the temperature limits T1 and T2. Here I have another engine E2 which operates between the temperature limit T2 and T3. Okay. So for this engine, Q1 by Q2 is a function of T1 and T2. So that we have seen here. Q1 by Q2 is a function of T1 and T2. Just like I did for this engine, I can also do for this engine. So for that engine, Q2 by Q3 is a function of T2 and T3. Okay. Say, let me combine these two engines and make it as a common engine E3, which operates between the temperature reservoirs T1 and T3. There is an engine which operates between the reservoirs T1 and T3. So now Q1 by Q3 will be equal to a function of T1 and T3. Okay. So your heat supplied by heat rejected is a function of source temperature and sink temperature. That is what we are trying to say. Okay. So because I have these two equations, if I call this as equation number 1, and if I call this as equation number 2. So this is for engine E1. Equation number 2 is for engine E2. And equation number 3 is for engine E3. And let me call this as equation number 3. Okay. And Q1 by Q3 can be mathematically written as, sorry, Q1 by Q2. Q1 by Q2 can be mathematically written as Q1 by Q3 divided by Q2 by Q3. Which means if I cancel out this Q3 and Q3, I'll get Q1 by Q2 back. So what I write is Q1 by Q3 whole divided by Q2 by Q3. Q1 by Q3 is seen in equation number 3, which is a function of temperature T1 and T3. And Q2 by Q3 is a function of T2 and T3, which is equal to a function of T2 and T3. Okay. So if I write something like this, okay, what I know is already Q1 by Q2 is a function of T1 and T2. Okay. Q1 by Q2 is already a function of T1 and T2. Now, because I have this formation, Q1 by Q3 divided by Q2 by Q3, I have a new formation which is a function of T1 by T1 comma T3 divided by function of T2 comma T3. But what I know very clearly is for Q1 by Q2, it is just functions of T1 and T2. So for this engine, which operates between T1 and T2, Q1 by Q2 is a function of T1 and T2 only. So it is not dependent on this T3. So I can remove this T3, but it is within a function. So if I remove T3, it will become another function, which is pi of T1 divided by pi of T2. So now my Q1 by Q2 is equal to some function of temperature T1 divided by some function of temperature T2. And this is where Kelvin proposed that this function of some temperature divided by function of another temperature is nothing but the absolute temperature itself. And he said this pi of T1 is nothing but T1, and this pi of T2 is nothing but T2, which is nothing but the source temperature and the sink temperature. Okay. And That is how the thermodynamic temperature scale came into existence. And what is the significance of this is, see, my temperature is simply dependent on the heat supplied and the heat rejected. Nothing else. It is not dependent on any other thermometric property. It is not dependent on resistance. It is not dependent on coefficient of thermal expansion. It is not dependent on volume. It is not dependent on any property at all. It is simply dependent on the heat supplied and the heat rejected. It is simply dependent on heat transfer alone. Okay, so that is the beauty, or that is the significance of your absolute thermodynamic temperature scale. And this result is very, very important. Q1 by Q2 equal to T1 by T2, which we will be using later on also. And this particular relation will help in problem solving also. So Q1 by Q2 is equal to T1 by T2, which can also be written as Q1 by T1 equal to Q2 by T2 from the last result. You can rewrite that as Q1 by T1 equal to Q2 by T2 also. And we will be talking about this in the next unit. Okay. So it can be written like this also. A very, very important result. Okay. And because of that, okay, we have already talked about Kelvin scale. Okay. So let us assume that there is an engine which operates between the source temperature T and another temperature which is nothing but the triple point of water. Okay, we said it is 273.16 Kelvin. In the Celsius scale, it is nothing but 0 degrees centigrade. 0 degrees centigrade plus 273 will give you 273 Kelvin. So it is nothing but your 0 degrees centigrade. Okay, or the triple point. The triple point is 273.16 Kelvin. Okay, so here I have an engine which operates between T and TT. T suffix T, this small t stands for triple point. Okay, I have an engine which operates between a source temperature and the triple point. What we know is this temperature is already known. Okay, if you remember when we did it in the first unit, we said this Kelvin scale is nothing but a single point temperature scale. You just require one temperature because this temperature is already known. You just need to know this temperature so that your Kelvin scale can be established. Okay, your Kelvin scale can be constructed. So the same thing we are doing here. So if according to what we did in the previous slide, we can write this as heat supplied Q divided by heat rejected QT is equal to the source temperature T divided by the sink temperature TT, which is nothing but temperature at triple point. And this temperature at triple point is 273.16. So now I am able to determine the source temperature with the help of this simple relation 273.16 Q by QT. Okay. All I need to know is how much amount of heat is supplied and how much amount of heat is rejected. Okay. Fine. Now let's move on to one more result which we can get through this. See here, Q1 by Q2 is written as T1 by T2. So it is written the otherwise. T1 by T2 is equal to Q1 by Q2. Okay. And we are introducing -1 on both sides. So you get T1 minus T2 by T2, which is equal to Q1 minus Q2 by Q2 without violating any mathematical procedure. Okay. And so I get T1 minus T2 equal to Q1 minus Q2 into T2 by Q2. Okay. So have this result on one hand. So this is for a normal heat engine operating between the temperature limits T1 and T2. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a series of heat engines. Okay. And what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to have a series of heat engines such that here between T1 and T2, I'm having a heat engine E1. Then between T2 and T3, I'm having another heat engine E2. T3 and T4, another engine E3. Okay, then you can go on. So I'm going to have a series of heat engines and say it is going to operate between, say, a fixed temperature 100 degrees centigrade to 0, or let's say 100 Kelvin. It is going to operate between 100 Kelvin and 0 Kelvin. The last temperature sink is going to be 0 Kelvin. Okay. And I'm going to have a series of heat engines between 100 Kelvin and 0 Kelvin, such that the temperature difference between the engines are equal. T1 minus T2 equal to T2 minus T3 equal to T3 minus T4. Okay. I'm going to operate a series of heat engines, E1, E2, E3, E4, etc. So on and on and on. Between the temperature limits, the initial temperature source is 100 Kelvin, and the final temperature sink is going to be 0 Kelvin. And I'm going to operate the engines in such a way that the difference between the source and sink temperature is maintained in all the engines. T1 minus T2 is equal to T2 minus T3 equal to T3 minus T4 equal to T4 minus T5, on and on and on. Okay. And what else I'm going to do is, all these engines are going to deliver equal amount of work. W1 equal to W2 equal to W3. What is W1? Q1 minus Q2. What is W2? Q2 minus Q3. What is W3? Q3 minus Q4. So just like I said, T1 minus T2 equal to T2 minus T3, because the work delivered is going to be the same, I can also write this as Q1 minus Q2 equal to Q2 minus Q3 equal to Q3 minus Q4. Okay. And that is what is being written here also. So T2 minus T3 is Q2 minus Q3 times T3 by Q3. Another way of representation, that's all, nothing complicated here. So actually even these things need not be considered at all. Okay, for this particular proof, it's going to be very simple. I'll show you very easily also. Okay, so let's say I'm go from for this 100 Kelvin. Okay, let me say my T2 is 75 Kelvin, and let us say this T3 is 50 Kelvin, and let's say this T4 is 25 Kelvin, and let's take one more engine, E5, and this is going to reject Q5, and let us say this is 0 Kelvin, which is T5. So T5 is equal to 0. Okay, and this is delivering W4 amount of work. So now I have 5 heat engines operating between the temperature limits 100 and 0. Okay, and the intermediate reservoir temperatures are 75, 50, 25. Okay, and let me assume, for convenience sake, so that you guys can easily understand, let me assume this heat supplied is 100 kilowatts. For convenience sake, for you to easily understand, it is not like if you have 100 Kelvin, you should have 100 kilowatts. It is not like that. I'm simply taking it as 100 kilowatts for convenience sake, for easy understanding. Okay, and let me assume all these engines are going to deliver 25 kilowatt of work. Okay, so if Q1 amount of heat is supplied, say 100 watt is supplied, and 25 watt is getting converted into work, the amount of heat rejected will also be 75. So Q2 will be 75 kilowatts. So Q2 will be 75 kilowatts. So out of this 75 kilowatts, that same 75 kilowatt is supplied to engine E2. 25 kilowatt is getting converted into work. Right? So how much amount of heat will be rejected? 50 kilowatt heat will be rejected. 75 minus 25 will be 50. So Q3 will be 50. So Q3, 50 kilowatt is supplied to E3. So of this 50 kilowatt, 25 kilowatt is getting converted into work. So remaining Q4 will be 25 kilowatt. So now if I have 25 kilowatts supplied to engine E5, the amount of work that should be delivered should be 25 kilowatt. So the amount of heat rejected will be equal to 0. Is this possible? Can you have heat rejection equal to 0? This violates the second law. So you cannot have a heat engine which converts all of the heat supplied into work. Okay. So if there is no heat rejection, it becomes perpetual motion machine of the second kind. All of the heat energy is converted into work. That is not possible. So this tells us, so if your heat rejection is 0 and your sink temperature is also 0. So it tells us that you cannot have a series of heat engines where the final sink temperature is 0 Kelvin. Okay, and that is called the third law of thermodynamics. The third law of thermodynamics is telling us it is impossible by any procedure, no matter how idealized, idealized means standardized, no matter how idealized, to reduce any system to the absolute zero of temperature in a finite number of operations. That is what we tried to do in the previous case. We tried to bring the temperature from 100 Kelvin to 0 Kelvin by a series of operations. We tried doing it. But when we tried doing it, we came to a situation where heat rejection becomes 0, which is not possible according to the second law of thermodynamics. So now we are able to come to a conclusion that reaching absolute 0 by a series of operations is not possible, and that is called the third law of thermodynamics. This third law, it is not into our syllabus. Just to give you the outcome of this absolute thermodynamic temperature scale, I have introduced this third law of thermodynamics to you, so that you guys can have a feel of what we are talking about. Okay, and the importance or the significance of the absolute thermodynamic temperature scale is that your temperature is just a function of the heat transfer, the heat supplied and heat rejected. That is the significance of your absolute thermodynamic temperature scale. Okay, so with this we come to the end of the third unit. I have just taken a couple of problems, 3 more problems as examples, and with that we will be concluding the third unit. Third unit is very simple, and you will be getting questions only from heat engines, refrigerator, and heat pump. Or they may ask you to prove some of these, maybe absolute thermodynamic temperature scale, that derivation may be asked, or maybe they ask you to prove the equivalence of Kelvin, Planck, and Clausius statements, or they may ask you to derive the efficiency of Carnot cycle. These are some simple questions that can turn out from this particular unit. Apart from that, this unit is very, very simple. Okay. So now let's solve a couple of problems here. 3 problems I have taken additionally, and with that we will conclude this particular unit. Okay. So in this example number 6, a reversible heat engine supplied heat from 2 constant temperature sources at 800 Kelvin and 400 Kelvin, rejects heat at a constant temperature sink at 200 Kelvin. Rejects heat, this should be 2. Rejects heat to a constant temperature sink at 200 Kelvin. And this should be is supplied heat. Is supplied heat from 2 constant temperature sources at 800 Kelvin and 400 Kelvin, and rejects heat to a constant temperature sink at 200 Kelvin. If the engine executes a number of cycles while developing 100 kilowatt and rejecting 3500 kilojoule of heat per minute, determine the heat supplied by each source per minute and efficiency of the engine. Okay, so we have to draw the diagram first. So apart from our regular diagram, this particular diagram tells us that there are 2 sources. Usually we have temperature T1 and temperature T2 as the two reservoirs, source and sink. Now we have two sources for one heat engine. Okay, so there are two heat supplied here. So let me call this as T1A and let me call this as T1B. I will retain this 1 for the source and 2 for the sink. And there is one common sink. Okay. And in the problem, they have said that T1A is 800 Kelvin. And this problem I have taken from Mahesham Ratur. This is 800 Kelvin. And this is 400 Kelvin. And this fellow is 200 Kelvin. We are not completed with the diagram yet. So this is supplying Q1A amount of heat. And this is supplying Q1B amount of heat. It is delivering W amount of work and rejecting Q2 amount of heat. So W, they have given this as 100 kilowatt. So this is 100 kilowatt. And Q2 is given as 3,500 kilojoule per minute. So this is kilojoule per minute. And they want us to find the heat supplied by each source, which means they want us to find Q1A and Q1B, and that too per minute. So this guy is in kilojoule per minute Q2, but this guy is in kilojoule per second. So if we have to convert this to kilojoule per minute, multiply with 60. So if you multiply with 60, this becomes 6,000. So 6,000 kilojoule per minute. So this is the net work done by the engine. Okay. We have two sources, but one work output and one heat rejection, one common heat rejection. So this tells us that we can write, so mathematically we can write that Q1 is equal to Q1A plus Q1B. No harm in writing like this because I'm going to have a common work out. I'm not going to have, I have a common work output and a common heat rejection as per the question that is given to me. Okay. And I know by my prior experience that W is equal to Q1 by Q1 minus Q2. Okay. So Q1 is W plus Q2. So Q1 is W plus Q2. And W is 6,000 and Q2 is 3,500, which is 9,500. So this is the total heat supplied. But this is not what they are asking. They are asking us to find Q1A and Q1B individually. Okay, so this is 9,500 kilojoule per minute. Okay, so this is your common heat supply. Okay, now let's see what can be done. Is there anything we can do from the known formulae? Your efficiency is work done divided by heat supplied. That we can find out. That is simple. Work done divided by heat supplied. Because you know the value of W, you know the value of Q1, so it is possible to find out the value of efficiency. So work done is 6,000 and your heat supplied is simply 9,500. That is the total heat supply. So your efficiency should be total work done divided by total heat supply. So this is quite simple. This I can find out. But how do I find out Q1A and Q1B? I don't know how to do that by using the regular formula. Okay, so this is where just now we saw Q1 by Q2 is equal to T1 by T2. This result we saw in absolute thermodynamic temperature scale, right? So now this will be helpful to you. Okay, and I am now going to use this from the absolute thermodynamic temperature scale. And in the next unit, we will talk about Clausius inequality. And from there, I'll give you another understanding for the same thing or the same steps that I'm using right now. I'll give you another understanding, and that is the appropriate understanding. Okay. But for now, let's take this and solve. And probably in the next session, I'll tell you what it is. Okay. Because I have this particular result, I can write this as Q1 by T1 equal to Q2 by T2. So what does that, what do we mean by this? So what we mean here is heat supplied by the source temperature is equal to heat rejected by the sink temperature. Okay. So here I have two heat sources. So from this particular result, I can write this as Q1 by T1A. Sorry, it's not Q1, it's Q1A. Q1 by T1A plus Q1B by T1B is equal to Q2 by T2. Okay, so I know the value of T1A, I know the value of T1B, I know the value of T2, I know the value of Q2. So now I will get one algebraic equation. Okay, I'll get an algebraic equation involving Q1A and Q1B. That will be one equation. The other equation is I know Q1 is equal to 9,500. Look at this first equation which we have written here, this fellow. Q1 is 9,500. So Q1 is nothing but Q1A plus Q1B. So Q1A plus Q1B is 9,500. So that is another algebraic equation. So now I have two algebraic equations involving Q1A and Q1B. So I can solve these two equations and I can get the value of Q1A and Q1B. Okay. So let's see how it's done. Okay. As I said, your Q1 is Q1A plus Q1B. So Q1A plus Q1B is 9,500. So this is your equation number 1. And just as I told you, source 1 the heat supplied from source 1 divided by source temperature 1 plus heat supplied by source 2 divided by second source temperature equal to heat rejected by sink temperature. So when I substitute the values 800, 400, 3,500 and 200, I get Q1A plus 2Q1B is 14,000. And you have to be consistent with the units. So here I have used kilojoule per minute. So here also 3,500 is kilojoule per minute. So you have to be careful while writing the equation. Be consistent with the units. If you are using kilojoule here, then here also it should be kilojoule. So if you are multiplying with 10 to the power 3 here, then you should multiply with 10 to the power 3. So on solving these two equations 1 and 2, I get Q1A is 5000 kilojoule per minute and Q1B is 4500 kilojoule per minute. You can use your calculator to get the values of Q1A and Q1B. Okay. So a very simple solution. The only thing is you need to have this idea that you have to use Q1 by T1 equal to Q2 by T2. So 0.5 kilogram of air executes a Carnot cycle with thermal efficiency of 50%. The heat transferred to air during isothermal expansion is 40 kilogram. So what they have given? They have given you the mass of air, which is 0.5 kilogram. They have given you the efficiency as 50%, which is nothing but 0.5 again. Mass is also 0.5. And here efficiency is also 0.5. Okay. And then the heat transfer to air using isothermal expansion is 40 kilojoule. So we know isothermal expansion is heat addition. Reversible isothermal expansion is heat addition. So Q1 is given as 40 kilojoules. Okay. At the beginning of isothermal expansion, the pressure and volume of air are 7 bar and 0.12 meter cube respectively. Okay. So they have given you the initial pressure and initial volume. So this is V1 and this 0.12 meter cube is V1. Find the maximum and minimum temperature of the cycle. And they have given you the Cp and Cv values. So they are either asking you to find out T1 and T2, or if you are convenient with the notation TH for the high temperature source and TL for the low temperature sink, either of these two representations you can use. You can either use T1 and T2 or you can use TH and TL. Okay. So these are all the given details. They have given you mass, they have given you Q1, they have given you the efficiency, they have given you the pressure and the volume. But what they want is the temperature of the source and the temperature of the sink. Nothing is mentioned about the temperature. If at least one temperature is given, we can use the efficiency formula. Efficiency is work done divided by heat supplied. Okay. Heat supplied is given, so you can find out work done, and then using that, even that is not necessary. If one temperature is given, 1 minus T2 by T1 will give you the efficiency is known. If T2 is given, then T1 can be found out. But now in this case, both the temperatures are not known to us. So is there any other way by which we can find out this?
Then we use PV equal to MRT, sir.
We can use PV equal to MRT, and that will give you one temperature. What is that temperature? Source temperature or sink temperature?
Source.
Very good. So that is the source temperature. Okay. So you have to use the ideal gas equation of state P1 V1 equal to MRT1. Okay. And the value of the pressure is given to you, the value of volume is given to you, the value of mass is given to you, and this is air. So you will be in a hurry to write R equal to 287, but be careful, Cp and Cv values are given. But luckily in this particular case, if you work out, Cp minus Cv is still 287. 1008 minus 721 is still 287. So in this case, if you haven't looked at it and if you have substituted 287, you will be lucky to get the same answer. But whenever CP/Cv values are given, please pay attention to that, get the value of R, then substitute it in the equation. Now you will get the value of T1. So once you know the value of T1, then use the relation efficiency equal to 1 minus T2 by T1. Now that T1 is known, you know the value of T1, you have estimated it just now, efficiency is known, so you can get the value of T2. You can find the value of T2. It's actually a very simple 2-mark question. Okay. So that is what is found out here. So R value is C, 287. T1 V1 equal to MR T1. So T1 here is 585.36 Kelvin. You have used the relation 1 minus T2 by T1. So T2 happens to be 292.68 Kelvin. Very, very simple question. The only thing is you should have the mind to apply ideal gas equation of state and get the value of T1. Okay. And the last problem for this particular unit. The efficiency of Carnot engine is 20%. The efficiency gets doubled when the sink temperature is reduced by 60 degrees centigrade. Estimate the source and sink temperatures. Okay. So they have said that there is a Carnot engine and the efficiency of the Carnot engine is simply 0.2, 20%. So efficiency of the first engine is 0.2. And then they are saying the efficiency gets doubled. So let me take another engine, which is the second engine. And here the efficiency gets doubled. So 2 into eta 1. Efficiency gets doubled. Eta 1 is 0.2. So this fellow is 0.4. Efficiency of the second engine is 0.4. Okay. And when does this happen? When the sink temperature, so for my convenience, let me write, I have an initial sink temperature which is TL1 minus 60. So TL2 is TL1 minus 60. I have an initial temperature, sink temperature. The first engine had an initial sink temperature which is TL1. Now the second engine is having a sink temperature which is lesser than the first sink temperature by 60 degrees centigrade. So TL2 is TL1 minus 60. So we have to estimate the source and sink temperatures. So it is very simple. So eta 1 is 1 minus the source temperatures are going to be the same. So 1 minus TH by TL1. If you write this equation, you know the value of eta 1. Okay, so you will get TL1 and TH1 equation. Eta 2 is 1 minus, sorry, you guys are silent. I have written this wrong. This is supposed to be TL1 by TH. 1 minus T2 by T1. So 1 minus TL2 by TH. And TL2 is nothing but 1 minus of TL1 minus 60 whole divided by TH. Okay, I know the value of eta 2.
So here we have to take the temperature in Celsius or Kelvin, sir.
What I have is just the difference in temperature. The sink temperature is reduced by 60. If it is reduced by 60 degree or 60 Kelvin, both are going to be the same.
Okay.
The difference between the two temperature is 60. So you should be very careful. Whenever there is a difference in temperature, don't be in a hurry to add plus 273. You will end up in a wrong answer. Okay? It's good that you asked. Every one of you keep in mind, whenever you have a difference in temperature, it is simply 60. 60 degrees centigrade is same as 60 Kelvin for a difference. Okay? So please keep that in mind. Okay, so now if you have these two formula, you will have two algebraic equations just like this. 1 minus TL1 by H is 0.2. So TL1 is equal to 0.8 TH. So this is equation number 1. And this gives you the second equation. TL1 minus 60 is equal to 0.6 TH. You can substitute 1 in 2 so that you get the entire equation with TH, and you will get, on solving the equations, you will get TH as 300 Kelvin and TL1 as 240 Kelvin. Okay.